Today on Locked On Rockies, awoo! What a mistake.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 27th day of July in the year 2022. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Proud to be your first listen of the day, and we are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. All you got to do, search Locked On Rockies, and you'll find us wherever you find podcasts. And if you want to join the show live, just like so many of you do, we got a great live audience here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Your subscription helps out big time, and you'll know when we go live if you hit that little bell. That way you'll especially know when we go live, and you can jump in and get your questions answered live. Always diving into the live chat during the show. So you subscribe on YouTube. I provide you the good Rockies talk. We have a whole lot of fun. It's all about a conversation with the fans here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Well, who am I? I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden. I've been covering the team for about 2 years now and bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast along the way, following the team my entire life as well. You can see more of what I do at paulfholden.com, or you can check out Seattle's morning news on Cairo News Radio. And today on Locked On Rockies, you might see the title and the headline and everything. Why are we talking about Jon Gray? That's kind of a random thing. The Rangers and the Rockies aren't playing. They're not. And it's been a while. Jon Gray has honestly been sneakily really good. So what gives? Why are we talking about Jon Gray today? Well, I'm going to go see Jon Gray pitch today. So I thought, well, if I'm going to go see Jon Gray pitch today, I'm going to talk about Jon Gray, who is someone that I'm bummed. I think that this is a mistake that the Colorado Rockies have made. Jon Gray deals with some injury issues early on, but nothing that us Rockies fans aren't used to or aren't surprised by. And what he's done since then has gone on to be a pretty darn good pitcher for the Texas Rangers, if not the best pitcher for the Texas Rangers this season. 1.9 WAR, 7-4 win-loss record, 3.48 ERA in 17 starts, 95 innings, 105 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.18. Home run totals here down this year greatly. 10 home runs this year. He allowed 21 in his last year with Colorado. Hasn't allowed not under 20 basically in the past 3 full seasons. He did get 19, so I guess yes there. So home run numbers are down, but Jon Gray is also he's filling that role great, and I think he's been it's such a nice piece for what the Rangers were looking for and what they can bring to a younger staff, and to have someone to go through and kind of knows that how to navigate when a season goes not according to plan. Jon Gray is not unfamiliar with seasons going haywire on them a little bit, as the Rangers are still performing better, and some might think they were supposed to be better than they are. But when I talked to Bryce Patrick at the beginning of the year, he kind of reminded us that this team still needs a little more time, even with the exciting offseason. And speaking of Bryce, I reached out to Bryce and I asked him the question, and I said, "Hey, Bryce, would you rather have Chad Kuhl or Jon Gray?" And he responds with, and if you're not familiar, Bryce Patrick is the host of Locked On Rangers. So we've friend of the show. He's been on a few times. We love talking to Bryce. He's always got such a great. He's got a great look on the game, and Locked On Rangers is awesome. But anyway, he says, "Oh, Jon Gray, 8,000%. He's been one of the best pitchers in the AL in June and July. Started slow with the knee and blister injuries, but has been healthy and dealing the last 2 months. All 3 of their bigs started slow, but now are crushing it, and he was worried in April. But that's kind of, I feel like, the story with Jon Gray. And what I'm glad. What another example of a pitcher that leaves and has a success story. And I didn't think that was too big of a shock for Jon Gray. I thought he was going to be successful elsewhere. And it was just kind of crazy that the amount of respect, that the Rangers put on Jon Gray and his performance, making him the opening day starter, having him basically be the ace, whereas Jon Gray was considered the back of the rotation guy. Here, and jumping into the live chat here, said Joel DeGray says, I honestly thought that Gray was going to be our ace all the way up until he left. He had his down moments, but I was always a fan of him. I was always excited to see Jon Gray take the mound. Another example of right now, if we had this Jon Gray, even with the injuries, you'd argue that he would be in a position that is helping the Rockies and someone that wanted to be here. And it's a little frustrating to me to hear Bud Black come out and talk about re-signing Cool and Urena. And it's a weird way to phrase that, but if they're gonna be aggressive in getting those two pitchers with a deal before the season ends, why was Jon Gray not treated with that same level of commitment? I mean, Chad Kuhl and Jose Urena have been fine, but let's look at the numbers. Let's dive in specifically. We talked about Jon Gray's numbers, but Chad Kuhl is a 1.2 WAR, 6-5, 4.48 ERA in 18 starts, 94 innings pitched. So again, even with Jon Gray's injuries, he's pitched more total innings than Chad Kuhl has this year. Jon Gray also has over 36 more strikeouts than Chad Kuhl does. He's got a lower whip of almost 3 points, and an ERA that's a whole full point lower. If you're that high on Chad Kuhl, why were you not that? And I know Jon Gray wasn't as good this year, but this is another example of what are we missing? What is going on with why are the Rockies continuing to miss out on pitchers that have been in their system for a bit? I mean, and maybe this is just 1 year, maybe flash in the pan, whatever. Sure. But you're telling me you wouldn't want a pitcher with 30 more strikeouts in your rotation now? That's the Rockies' best pitcher this year we're talking about, folks. When I talk about Jon Gray being that much better in those categories than Chad Kuhl, that is the Rockies' best pitcher this year. You might argue that if all of the down years, blah, 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 or whatever. But right now, Jon Gray is outperforming the entire Rockies starting rotation. That was a mistake to let Jon Gray go, especially when you don't trade him at the deadline. This is why the Rockies front office and the Rockies reputation suffers greatly. This is why when you read a thing into the CBS previewing what the Rockies might do at the trade deadline, they call them the most incompetent team in baseball. The Rockies swing and miss all the time and go big in the wrong directions. Jon Gray should have been re-signed and on this team right at the deadline. You should have said to Rockies fans, and you should have said to Jon Gray, we're getting the deal done for you right now, showing our commitment to what you can do for our club. Instead, Jon Gray is outperforming your entire playoff caliber rotation in a different uniform, while also spending 2 stints on the IL. Let's dive into more of the numbers here with why Jon Gray has been so effective and compare him to other Rockies pitching. But before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible. Whether you're ready to pop the question or celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as your favorite person with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind. Folks, don't worry. You're not going to be in over your head. You're not going to be. It's a big purchase, obviously, especially if you're going with something like an engagement ring. You want to do it right. You want to make sure you're asking the right questions and taking the time to do so. Well, guess what? The Blue Nile staff, they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7 on the phone or the web chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. I know I'm sitting kind of in dark lighting here in my room, but it's very hot in Seattle. I'm kind of keeping things relatively cool in the room today. But also, you know what would be cool? Check out the Locked On MLB trade deadline show that we got coming up here. And of course, we always are thanking you for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. The MLB trade deadline is August 2nd, and Locked On MLB is going to have all the breakdowns. Locked On Rockies will have rapid reactions to any moves made. You can subscribe now to your favorite Locked On Rockies or on YouTube when you can subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get notified when we premiere episodes. And you can jump into the live chat just like Jeff Terry did and says, short answer? Yes. And the answer, honestly, Terry, yeah, that is the shortest answer. It's plain, it's simple, it's blunt. It's a firm encapsulation of the frustration of Rockies fans and the true understanding of the direction of this team and the thought process of this team when it comes to talent evaluation, signing players, and what this team actually wants to do. We just talked about Jon Gray outperforming the entire starting rotation for the Rockies. And let's dive into the numbers. Let's go into who should we go next? Let's go Kyle Freeland, who's been the Rockies' second best pitcher this year, arguably. And Kyle Freeland, 1.1 WAR, 5-7 win-loss record, a 4.64 ERA in 19 starts, 108 innings pitched, 76 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.362. Kyle's given up 12 home runs this year compared to Jon Gray's 10. To go one stat we didn't talk about as well with Chad Kuhl, 12 home runs given up by him as well. So Jon Gray has also given up less home runs than the Rockies' two best pitchers this year. He also, in terms of strikeouts, has 30 more strikeouts than about 29 more strikeouts than Kyle Freeland, has an ERA of almost nearly a point lower. And as the one thing that Kyle has gone longer than Jon Gray in terms of innings. He's pitched more innings than Gray. He's started in more games than Gray. That's kind of the big difference you're getting there. But again, across the board, Jon Gray has outperformed another Rockies pitcher of this quote-unquote playoff caliber rotation. The Rockies all-star from last year, German Marquez, 6-8 this year with a WAR of 0.3. This is Baseball Reference WAR, by the way. ERA of 5.25 in 19 games, 109 innings pitched, 91 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.432. Folks, I'm going to let you answer this for me here as if we were in a big, cool live studio audience. Is that line better than 1.9 WAR, a win-loss record of 7-4, a 3.48 ERA, 17 starts, 95.2 innings pitched, 105 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.18, allowing 10 home runs on the year with 29 walks? The answer, folks, is yes, it is indeed better. German Marquez has 38 walks and 18 home runs given up. Kyle Freeland has walked 33 people this year, and Chad Kuhl has walked 39. Again, Jon Gray has walked 29. It's this it again. We talking trade deadline. We're talking stuff that should be made, and this competitor mentality mindset. But we often, how many times have we run the wheel of, oh, look at that Rockies pitcher go off. Look at that Rockies pitcher go out and do something great. And again, Jon Gray's not out there. It's not like he's throwing a Cy Young caliber season. I'm not out here trying to say Jon Gray is the best pitcher in baseball, but I'm just saying we were told that we're being told that what this team is supposed to be, a playoff caliber rotation. But when one player that you could have brought back to your team is outperforming your entire rotation and not on a playoff team at the moment, I feel like I have been extra cynical lately on the pod. I try to sometimes bring some form of optimism, but the trade deadline always gets me in such a frustrated, upset mindset because I just despise how this team handles the deadline. And when we see stuff and talk Jon Gray, it's another storyline on a long history of trade deadline mishaps. You could have traded Story and Gray to the Rangers last year. You could have done it. I mean, with how aggressive the Rangers were, there was a path there that both Gray and Story are Texas Rangers at the deadline, and the Rockies get something back. Instead, now I'm going to go watch Jon Gray pitch against the Mariners, and I don't care what happens. He's still going to have a better line than the entire Rockies rotation. Diving into the live chat here, Jeff Terry says, it's fun to think that we still believe that our head office has a direction. It's like watching a 10-year-old on franchise mode on a video game. It sometimes feel like that. If we did a full sell and reboot, it would be fine. The problem is that we lose pieces slowly over time, and we don't have a chance to build around it. We bleed out. We also are inactive. The best teams in Rockies history, which were just a few years ago, that included players like Jon Gray, the team should have bought at the deadline. The team should have actually embraced analytics and not signed Ian Desmond and Daniel Murphy. The team should have gotten CJ Cron. With how much bouncing around CJ Cron was doing, there's really not, I mean, there's a path. If they found CJ Cron then, why didn't they find him before? I don't believe that they couldn't have done that. I just believe that this team continues to show a lack of embrace of the modern game and the modern understanding of baseball. And missing out and not getting a deal done with Jon Gray is another prime example. Let's go through. Let's keep comparing Jon Gray to our pitchers here today. Antonio Senzatella, 0.4 WAR, 3-5 win-loss record of ERA, 4.98, 14 starts, 65 innings pitched, 38 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.78. Antonio Senzatella has walked 16 batters and given up 7 home runs and 36 earned runs. I mean, Senz has been hurt, of course, and not has as much of the line as Jon Gray, but overall, not as good and not as effective as Jon Gray has been. Jose Urena, let's see here, 0.7 WAR, 1-2 win-loss record, a 3.13 ERA in 8 starts, 31 innings pitched, 17 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.421. He also had a little bit of time in Milwaukee. I guess, we haven't seen enough for Jose to have a fair and accurate comparison at the moment, but I would rather have Jon Gray. At the end of the day, I would rather have Jon Gray than this pitching staff at the it's not that I think Jon Gray is better than all these pitchers. It's just Jon Gray should be on this team. That's what we're talking about. That's kind of what the whole point of it is. Let's talk about last night a little bit and wrap up the thoughts on the White Sox series. But before we do that, we got to talk about our friends at BetOnline.net. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today at betonline.net. That's betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. Jon Gray says, the problem with our front office is they field a team that is just good enough to claim they could have contended if X or Y didn't happen. And Jeff Terry follows with, we also play people who are not our future instead of allowing our kids to get some experience. Season is over. Let the kids learn. That's been a problem with the Rockies. It's again, the Rockies don't want to concede. They never have wanted to concede. They don't like that idea. They don't want to embrace a rebuild. They don't want to do anything because they're worried of the impact it has, because they're a top 10 team in attendance all the time. They're afraid if they do say that stuff, embrace that stuff, then the numbers are going to go down, which just simply isn't the case. I think people will still go watch the Rockies. There have been plenty of worse teams that the Rockies have fielded than this team. Many people have gone to much worse Rockies baseball in the past than some of the teams that the Rockies have fielded of late, even though it might not feel that way. But they just need to. It's another example of a philosophy shift. And anyway, I know we're chatting there, but I gotta talk sloppy defense. Come on, Rockies. I mean, it's that a plague. And as soon as I talk up Garrett Hampson goes out and pulls some stuff like that, and it's just this series. That game was winnable. I mean, again, and when Herman has been coming back, there is just it's. You can't be doing that. I mean, the White Sox have struggled at Coors Field. They aren't playing well. You got to. I mean, the clutch. The Rockies are just missing clutch this year. What was it? 4 ground balls into double plays last night, and with the bases loaded, or something crazy like that. The Rockies that game last night is just a prime example of the Rockies not having clutch. They might have players that can do clutch things and have stepped up in big situations. And that bottom of the ninth was honestly it was a good effort to go up against that closer, to get a home run, to get yourself in that position. Charlie Blackmon having that heck of an at bat. There are good things there, but the Rockies just have not been able to just clutch up, to just bust a game open. Man, the Rockies very few times have just blown a team out this year. They just cannot, in those big situations, get the job done. And then multiple errors, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Pardon me. We'll see if the Rockies salvage this series here and get a split instead of a sweep. And they need to, if they want to keep treading water and keep being the contenders that they so believe they are. We'll be breaking it all down here on Locked On Rockies. I got to jet because I'm catching that matinee baseball as well. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. Why don't you go check out the Locked On MLB podcast and stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcast. And you can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. You can follow me at Paul Holden 33. Subscribe to that YouTube channel so you can pop into the live chat just like Joel and Jeff did today. And until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the